So you may remember that back in December I did a video called the top 10 biggest non-league fan bases. That was based on the biggest attendances on average for the first half of last season. I said then that I'll do an updated version at the end of the season to see how it sort of changes as the season progresses, and that's what this video is, the top 10 biggest fan bases in non-league, the updated version. So the original version of this video had the top 10 looking like this, and in at number 10 on the original video was Aldershot, but that has now been replaced by the team that was in 7th place on the mid-season version, and that is Eastleigh. So they started off the season really well, but then capitulated as the season continued, tumbling dangerously towards a relegation battle. They were saved eventually at the end, but their average attendances, they did slip a little bit. They were still 10th, which is still respectable. They had an average of 2,242 at the Silver Lake Stadium. The record for last season was 4,114. That was set fairly early in the season, and that is an 11% rise in average attendance compared to the 2015-16 season. In at number 9 was the club that was actually in 10th at the start of the season. As I mentioned a minute ago, that is Aldershot. So they have moved up one place. They had a very good season. They started off fairly mid-table and then grew and grew as the season progressed and eventually got into the playoffs. So a very successful season for them. And in terms of their fan base, it saw them grow by a total of 43% based on the 2015-16 data. So a massive increase in average attendances, 43%, that is huge. They had an average attendance last season of 2,296 with a record of 3,944. In at number 8 is Maidstone United. They had an average attendance this season of 2,386 with a record of 3,409. It's an 8% rise from last season, which, you know, they've got an amazing fan base as it is, to be fair. So, you know, the fact that it's risen a bit, it just shows that they've got a great fan base. In at number 7 is one that really surprised me. It's York City. They actually grew in terms of average attendance as the season progressed, despite it being a season where they got relegated and was filled with so much negativity. They had an average last season of 2,558 with a record of 4,691. It's a 20% decrease from their average from the 2015-16 season when they were in the Football League, but really that's not a massive decrease considering they dropped from the Football League down into the relegation zone of non-league. Number 6, into the National League North, FC United Manchester. At Broadhurst Park, they had an average last season of 2,667 with a record of 4,158. That's a 21% decrease on the 2015-16 season because their fan base is slowly dwindling, unfortunately, by the looks of things at FC United. Now into the top 5, and at number 5 is Hereford FC, who were in the Southern League Division 1 South and West last season, the 8th tier of English football, but their crowds, they are still amazing because it's just an amazing story with Hereford, how they've gone from being in the Football League, they liquidated, started again, fan-owned, and they are storming up through the leagues. They've now got into the 7th tier. Last season they had an average attendance of 2,739 with a high of 4,406. It's so impressive. Number 4, Stockport County. At Edgeley Park, they've had an average last season of 3,477 with a record of 5,783. That's actually an increase of 13% compared to the 2015-16 season. So despite them being stuck in the National League North, there's real positivity about the place that really this season could be their season. Now onto the top 3, Lincoln, Tranmere and Wrexham. Which order will they be in from the end of the season? Lincoln, their attendances increased drastically mid-season, which was unbelievable really. They went from getting just a few thousand to having a full stadium pretty much every week, about 9,000. It was insane. After their FA Cup run, the publicity that surrounded the club, everyone wanted to go and see Lincoln. So how did that affect their standing in terms of average attendance for the overall season? In 3rd place is Wrexham. Lincoln were in 3rd on the mid-season version of this video, but obviously their attendance increased a bit, so Wrexham slipped down to 3rd. They had an average overall last season of 3,892 with a record of 5,603. It's a 16% decrease compared to the 2015-16 season, but you know, that's sort of what happens. The attendances fluctuate when you get stuck in non-league like Wrexham have done for such a long time. Now onto the top 2, and unbelievably there is a difference of just 12 people in the average attendance between Lincoln and Tranmere. One of them has 5,161, the other has 5,173. It is so tight, the numbers are so close. who is going to come out on top, who has got the biggest non-league fan base, and that club is Tranmere. Despite Lincoln having amazing attendances at the end of the season, they couldn't quite catch Tranmere up on the overall average attendance for the entire season. Lincoln in second place had an average, as I just said, of 5,161 with a record of 10,031 people inside Sincilbank. That average is a 99% increase compared to the season before last. So their fan base has grown so much in such a short space of time because of the publicity and because of what the Cowleys are doing at the football club. And obviously they've got promoted to the Football League, so that fan base will only grow even more. They've sold around 5,500 season tickets this year for their first year in the Football League in quite a while, so that number on its own is incredible. Tranmere have had an average attendance this season of 5,173 with a record of 7,790. So obviously their record is a lot lower than what Lincoln got, but Tranmere, they've averaged that attendance throughout the whole season. They've had around about that for the entire sort of 10 months of the season, whereas Lincoln, they had fairly low attendances for the first half of the season, and then the second half they were massive and couldn't quite catch Tranmere up on average. So Tranmere's attendance, that was a 2% increase on the 2015-16 seasons. So basically the fan bases stayed pretty much exactly the same. But anyway, that's it for this video. Were there any teams in this list that surprised you? Were you surprised that Lincoln didn't get to number 1, or that they were separated just by 12 people from second to first? So if you're looking forward to next season and enjoyed this video, then click that like button and subscribe for more non-league content. But as always, thanks for watching.